And click a thingy and go. And you are now alive.
Gentlemen, are we good to go? We're good to go. Perfect.
That's everything okay?
Hello and welcome to TIFF Long Take. It is the 2017 Toronto International Film Festival, and while Jeff and I may look relaxed on the inside, we're freaking out a little bit because we are here with our collective idol, Mr.
No one
Jim
would
Carrey.
ever know it. You are so slick right out of the gate.
Right?
Unbelievable the way you put that together.
It's not our first rodeo, Jim.
Are you a student of the National Institute of Broadcasting by any chance?
Born and raised.
Really?
Yeah.
He was literally
Can I tell you about the National Institute of Broadcasting?
do.
Well, I don't want to make any aspersions or anything. I don't know what they're doing now. But when I was, I guess, 15, I was 15 years old, and I was looking for a way into the business, and my dad was out of work, and he was a great character, so we decided we wanted to be radio personalities or television personalities of some kind.
Yeah.
So we heard about this place called the National Institute of Broadcasting, and we came down to do the kind of initiation, commencement, whatever it is, that where they really scrutinize you, and they hear your voice, and they see you, and they interview you, and they decide whether you're eligible to pay them $800. And
What did they decide?
oddly enough, both of us got in.
What?
Incredible. I mean, what are the odds of that?
That is.
So we got in, did the whole rigmarole. That's not even a word.
It's sort of it's
I'm
a
like
word.
Dylan
now.
Thomas.
It's now a word.
I'm making up words. Goo goo gajoob. So we got in. We were so stoked. It was like me and my dad.
That's
We were going to
exciting,
be
right?
broadcasters. Totally exciting. And then we came for the first lesson, and it was in a kind of a warehousey type thing on Bloor Street. And the first lesson was how to be a network anchorman.
Oh.
And we all
Really starting right at the top, eh?
right to it. Shoot high. So we lined up in this line, and they said, okay, line up here, here's your copy. We're going to just test how you are in front of a camera. And they gave me the copy, and gave my dad the copy, and my dad and I turned and joined the line, and were stunned, silent, because the guy on camera that was being tested at that time was suffering from a horrible facial tic.
Oh.
And he was going, yes. And then there's tonight, like this kind of thing. Like this. And then we looked through the line, and it was just basically like Lourdes.
$800 well spent.
$800 well spent. They made it. They all made it.
Oh my
You know,
gosh.
and of course, then I kind of got known doing the stand-up comedy, and they took out a full-page ad, took credit for it.
At that age, like, what we were wondering is what was the first character you ever created?
Oh my gosh. I used to imitate the Carol Burnett show all the time when I was a kid. I used to imitate Tim Conway. You old man is coming in, shoveling and going over here. And all that stuff. So that was my childhood, was Carol Burnett.
Yeah.
And the great thing is that they're having their 50th anniversary. And, Carol has known this story for a long time, that I tried to get on her show when I was 10 years old.
Yeah, you sent a resume in, right?
I sent a little resume and a list of the impressions I did, which were like 120 people at that time.
Wait, you had an actual itemized list of 120
All
impressions?
the people that I did, yeah. And I wanted on the show, I said, like one of the regulars, like Tim Conway or Harvey Korman. And they sent me, I got a letter back from Hollywood. It was like the greatest day of my life.
That's incredible.
Everything went into slow motion. Like that. And it was a letter, like a kind of a form letter or whatever, from an assistant and stuff with a Carol Burnett signature stamped on it. But it said that they generally hire their talent through agencies and things like that. But the best of luck, and it sounds like you're doing great, and we encourage you to keep going and all that stuff. And then oddly enough, scribbled on it, kill yourself. No.
That was nice of them.
In blood,
Weird.
somehow.
No, but I didn't care that it was a rejection. I just got a letter from Hollywood,
Yeah.
Television City, man.
Your first connection.
I was gone. I was so happy.
That is amazing.
That was the first connection, exactly. So now I get to go on the 50th anniversary show.
Oh, wow.
And celebrate Carol Burnett with all the guys that are from that show, and and finally, pump the fist that I made it on the show.
Do you still have that letter?
I don't have the letter. No, I don't think so. My family never saved anything. There's no pictures, nothing.
Was there ever a moment where you first sort of realized, like, I want to be a performer. This is what I want. This is the thing that I want to do with my life.
There was never any other choice. There was never any other choice. From the time that there was consciousness in the body, I was looking at a man named Percy, my dad, who was the most incredible character that you'd ever meet. If you met him for 5 minutes, you thought you knew him for 50 years.
Wow.
And he wrapped everyone that came into our house in stories and jokes, and they left my house always with pea stains and going like, Percy, oh man, you missed your calling, Percy. You missed your calling. Like that. And, so I became his calling at a certain point. And he was always super behind me. But from the first time I can remember, him just lighting up the room, and him just like wrapping everybody in a story or whatever, and going, oh, that's the thing I want to do. That's what I want to be.
Was it like an amazing experience when he first saw you on stage, seeing you
Well,
perform?
it's funny because he was always there. He was always there to encourage me to get up in front of the company or throw myself down a flight of stairs, whatever, in slow motion. And he said, "Where do you see this? Where do you see this?" Because I became what was special about the family.
Right.
And I won a spinch contest, and it's
There's
paid off.
only one.
and
The lost
spades.
art of spinch.
The spinch, yes. I'm going to make a spinch now. Kennedy was one of the best at spinches, I believe.
They're best at many things.
No, but I won a speech contest, a Halton County speech contest.
Hey.
When I was, I believe, that was grade 6, and about comedy.
Yeah.
And I did, and I learned how to do ventriloquism for it, and I bought a little dummy and learned about all the different types of comedy, and did some research about spoonerisms and whatever else that I could talk about, and I won the contest, and I was so flabbergasted, but the greatest memory of it was that my father was in the front row, and as soon as they announced that I had won, he went, "Ah!" like this, and his dentures from the top fell to the bottom. He went, "Ah!" like that. And that's the image that I have. Like my first giant victory on stage is my father's dentures falling.
You're obviously inspired by your dad, but when did you first come in contact or kind of meet Andy Kaufman?
Well, it was early on. I mean, Andy Kaufman was just kind of a odd, at first, like everybody with Andy, is like, what am I watching here? I'm used to Carol Burnett, and I'm used to people presenting themselves, and I am so-and-so, and here's my gig, And this guy just twisted it all around. He didn't care about the form, and he was a challenge to form itself. So I had to process it, and then I just went, I really like this, because I had a rebellious streak early. It was never a wanting to hurt somebody's streak. There were moments of that, but when we were poor, but there was mostly I want to challenge your beliefs. I want to challenge the properness of this occasion, or whatever it is, and throw it on its head in a way that you can accept and love, and it'll free you. So I've been in the business of freeing people from concern. I call it the Church of FFC, freedom from concern, and that's been my ministry my whole life.
Sort of to that point, I mean, Andy Kaufman seemed to be someone who refused to be categorized. he didn't really fit in a box.
That's a
and
very cliche thing that you just said.
Well, fine. Okay. Rob. Jeez.
Refused to be categorized.
Well, but like, he said
He
that
flaunted convention.
he said he was a song and dance man.
Yeah.
Right? Like he wasn't
That's
a
right.
comic. What do you think? Do you think that people can learn from that? Like being, like kind of refusing to be what they're told?
I don't think they need to go out to do it. I just think it's in your nature or it isn't in your nature, It's like, it's kind of, I don't want to see the same old thing.
Right.
And I think there's a ton of people out there that don't want to see the same old thing. And it's very strange because I've been sharing things that, lately about what I believe and stuff that are really kind of, maybe a few years ago might have been like, okay, Jim, yeah, maybe we'll join you on that planet someday. But
Yeah, we'll call you sometime.
we'll send a probe and check out the atmosphere, see if it's livable. But yeah, there's a lot of methane here. Cow farts. But, I'm finding that people are all kind of for the most part, accepting of another kind of way of looking at things or letting go of character. There's this kind of weird thing. Like I went on a Broadway stage with Michael Moore last week, and I did a lot of comedy and I did political stuff, and that was all great. And then I just kind of slowed down and started talking about the river of tears that we all have to face, and eventually, and that we're all avoiding, and how at the other side there's, that your body can survive it, but you can't, and you're better off without a you or an I. And I got into that pretty heavily, and they were looking at me like, this isn't what he's supposed to say.
Right.
It was more like, you're supposed to say, we're important, and you're supposed to say it's all going to be all right, and you're supposed to say that whatever you dream can come true, and you're supposed to say all those things. I do believe in manifestation, power of that kind of stuff, but I don't believe that any of it matters. This mattering is to me a human construct, born out of a need, just same need as you have to have, deities and things like that. I mean, I believe in an energy of God, an energy of, everything is divine. There's just there's no thing that isn't divine. Everything is divine, and I'm that. I'm not the body. I'm you guys, and I'm this thing, and I'm this thing, and I'm the cameras, and it doesn't matter to me what's happening on them. Sometimes I still have the groove cut in me that, wants my hair to look nice.
Right.
It's an ancient thing.
Yeah.
There's still ego there, but I don't, I'm finding that ultimately the freedom from it is something people are kind of hungry for in a way.
Right.
They're like, I don't want to be me either.
Right.
And I go, well, great, because you never have been.
Right. Has this always been the case? Like, deep down, is that been something that you've always thought of, or is that a shift?
The knowledge has been evolving, and I had to, I believe that I had to become a famous, idea.
Yeah.
And get all the stuff that people dream about, and accomplish a bunch of things that, that look like success in order to give up my attachment to those things. It's been a part of the evolution of ego is to spend your first half of your life acquiring and adding, thinking you can add to yourself, and it looks great. I mean, it looks great when you got a cool car and you got nice clothes, and and you're and you've done something that people admire, but it can never fulfill you. You can never be happy. You know what I mean? It's not where happiness comes from. And I dealt with depression, a few years ago, and people still think, well, he's going through. You can tell he's depressed, and it's not. I have no depression in my life whatsoever. Literally none. I have sadness and joy and elation and satisfaction and gratitude beyond belief, but all of it is weather, and it just spins around the planet. It's not. It doesn't sit on me long enough to kill me.
Do you have a happy place? Besides here.
There's just
It's just
everywhere.
with us,
There's
right?
just everything. The happy place is realizing that you're everything, you know, and that there's no real you involved in the first place. You know, it's a weird little semantic jump that you make where it sounds like, well, that's totally fucking threatening, man. I can't not be me. I've built this construct.
Yeah.
You know, from the time I was given a name, and then I'm a fucking Celt. My mother's, you know, great grandmother was fucking raped by a Viking, and that's what makes me strong, you know, or whatever it is. And it's just ideas. They're
Right.
just ideas. You know, the only thing that separates you from an African American or an African Canadian is an idea. You know, and the weather.
Right.
You know, and the adaptation to the climate, and whatever it is, I don't believe in any of it, and so the feeling of wholeness is a different feeling than meanness. You know?
One of the things you said in the film, in Jim and Andy, which really kind of struck a chord with both Jeff and I, was that, you know, we're playing characters and characters are playing us.
Yeah.
I feel like that folds into this idea that you're telling us about quite nicely, and I wonder if you could expand upon it a little bit.
Well, it's crazy because you see, you know, I mean, throughout time, like Andy, like Lenny Bruce, like breakthrough people, artists and whatever, refused to wear the mask. Although Andy was putting masks on, in temperament and in his approach, he wasn't wearing a mask. He was going right for whatever you thought was precious.
Right.
And those types of people make it really hard for people to wear their masks, you know? So those who wish to masquerade for the rest of this virtual game sometimes are made really uncomfortable by it. You know, they're like, it really looks like a mask beside somebody who's not wearing a mask. Yeah.
Do you think there could be growth from that for those kinds of people, like that
I have a growth.
uncomfortability? Oh God! All right, well,
Yep.
is it possible?
I'm not having it removed either.
Well, there you go.
Never. In the documentary, you mentioned that characters like
I have a
Stan-
melanoma. It's called Trump.
Who doesn't?
Yeah, do you feel like happier to be up north, where we're slightly away from him right now?
I don't know if happier is the word, but I'm always, you know, I always have a beautiful feeling coming back and listening to April Wine. Every time I come back, I like listen to the bands I grew up with and stuff like that, and imagine the Ravine and Tammy Lauren making out and having my brother buy the 2-4 of Export and whatever. You know, I go through all that stuff. You know. And I get glimpses, like when I talk to you guys, I'm feeling the Canadian thing,
Yeah.
and it's great. You know, when you come to the film festival, you know, a lot of that is kind of obscured. You could be anywhere because all I'm seeing is Jim, please, oh God, like that. Oh, come on, Jim, you didn't get me over there. I was over there and you didn't get me, and that kind of stuff. And so that's not really a Canadian thing.
Right.
It doesn't feel like anyway. And but it is. It's always nice to be back here. It's always nice to be back here. It's a beautiful place. You know, it's a kind of heaven. You know.
You, in the documentary, you mentioned that characters like Stanley Ipkiss in The Mask, Truman Burbank, Truman Show, Joel Barish, Eternal Sunshine, they all represented emotional states that you were in at that time of production. I thought that was really interesting. Do you think you were looking for these characters, or were these characters kind of born out of the place that you were in?
Yeah, they're attracted to whatever that magnetism is at that time. You know, I don't really look for things, and it's the same with painting and sculpting and whatever. I'll just start, and it happens that later on, my subconscious mind told me something, just like the scripts tell me something about where I was at. You know, and so they find me. You know, and that's why I disappear for long periods of time, because people go, well, what the hell, man? You're supposed to make 2.5 movies a year.
Yeah,
And I go, but that's playing to a demographic, and I don't want to do that ever. And plus, when you go away a little bit, sometimes you learn a new stroke. You know, it's like you lop your right arm off to learn how to write with your left, and then you sew the right arm back on when you've learned, and then you go, hey, check it out. You know, and then you can come back. Still, you can do the old stuff, but the new stuff is there too.
Yeah.
You know.
You reference, Jekyll and Hyde as an idea in the documentary, and how
I don't. Jekyll does.
there we go.
Oh, that was Jekyll.
And that was Jekyll that said that.
You talk about like Jim Carrey the man, Jim Carrey the performer. Are you more comfortable as one or the other, or is that like, are they even mutually exclusive?
I don't exist, so they're all characters that I played, including Jim Carrey, including Joel Barish, including any of those things. They're all characters. Jim Carrey was a less intentional character,
Right.
because I thought I was just building something that people would like, but it was a character, so it's, I played the guy that was free from concern so that people who watched me would be free from concern, and then at a certain point you go like, okay, well, that's great, but it's like the one thing, like people talk about depression all the time. The difference between depression and sadness is just, from happenstance, whatever happened or didn't happen for you, or, grief or whatever it is. And depression is your body saying, fuck you, I don't want to be this character anymore. I don't want to hold up this avatar that you've created in the world. It's too much for me.
Right.
And so a friend of mine who's a spiritual teacher has a really good take. His name is Jeff Foster, and his take on it is that they should change. You should think of the word of depressed as deep rest. Deep rest. Your body needs to be depressed. It needs deep rest from the character that you've been trying to play.
Right.
The great and powerful Oz. I'm the great and powerful Oz. How dare you come near me? Kind of thing. And you're just the sweaty guy behind the curtain going. It's an amazing metaphor, in that movie.
Was getting the character of Andy Kaufman out of you after Man on the Moon extremely difficult?
Yes.
Yeah.
It was very strange because I had dinner with my friend Nick Cage, a couple months before the movie happened.
Yeah.
And in the middle of dinner, he said, "What the fuck is going on with you, man?" I went, "What do you mean?" And he went, "Your eyes are different. Something going on with you. Your eyes are different." And it was already happening.
Oh, wow.
Once I started really looking at Andy, he just, and there was a gradual decision that, I was, to me, he was the ultimate avant-garde. He was the ultimate courageous, knight, comedy knight that didn't even need to let you in on the joke. You go to his grave not letting you in on the joke. I don't have that kind of courage, I gotta, someday there's gotta be Cliff Notes, you know what I mean, or whatever. Yeah. And so deciding that he would come back and do the movie and take over was not only a tribute to the fact that he took over everywhere he went, but it gave Jim the license to, upset people in the way that Andy upset people, and not let them in on the joke and not be responsible for it.
I think one of the most impressive things in my mind is the fact that Andy taking over you and you portraying Andy in Men on the Moon really introduced a whole new generation to Andy Kaufman that might not understand
I'm so
his
happy
brilliance.
about that.
Yeah.
I'm so happy. There's so many things I'm happy about this whole thing. First of all, it's just a complete blessing out of nowhere. First of all, the fact that a new generation is going to be introduced to Andy Kaufman is good for the world, and it makes me happy, like you can't believe, and also that the players around Andy, like Bob Zmuda, Margulies, these people are being recognized for their contribution, what they were and still are, amazing. Bob came to life again on this movie, and he had his buddy back, and he really says that. I mean, this is what was not just an actor was playing my friend. My buddy was back, and then the trouble started all over again. The fun started all over again, and that's the amazing part about this. And it just started with. Just Andy's mischief. Andy's mischief. you know, and them getting involved, going, it's on again, it's on, he's back. And by 3 weeks into the thing, you know, Danny DeVito was on board. He was getting abused terribly and loving it. And Milos was on board and directing them as they needed to be directed. And the Teamsters were coming up to Tony Clifton, and the Hell's Angels were his security on the set. And you know, the Teamsters coming up who they don't care about actors. You know, they don't want anything to do with us normally. And they're coming up to Tony going, anything you need, man. You need to play a joke or a prank and stuff. We're all in it. We're all in it with you.
You had a crew.
That. The crew was there, man. There's these hardened guys. There was at one point on the Teamsters trucks, there was a banner that said that the Tony Clifton Club, or the Clifton Club, they were in love with him. And he stunk to high heaven. I mean, you know, there was not a lot of bathing going on when Tony was around, and there was also smearing of Limburger cheese all over him.
Ooh.
So it
Delicious
smelled,
and confusing.
It smelled like baby shit, like from 20 feet away, and you would not believe how attractive women found that.
I do not
A
believe
powerful
that.
musk.
Repulsion then turns to attraction.
Wow.
Amazing. Little tip for you.
This seems like a trap.
A little ode to Limburger.
I feel like I'm being played.
Then you know they really like you.
Oh, yes. Jim, we know that you're super, super busy. We love the film. Congratulations. Thank you so much for taking the time to chat with us.
It's so great to be here.
We really hope to see you again soon.
And good luck with your broadcasting careers.
Thank you, sir.
All right.
Gotta make that $800.
National Institute of Broadcasting. Be there.